That could, I was getting ready to say, Larry, that could actually be me rising from the ashes. I've already told you about my whirlwind weekend. I may have to do that. Well, now we get into probably going to become my favorite part of the show, which would be Story Hour with Riggo. Story time. And something that caught my attention is in the very first intro that we had with Coach Gibbs talking about how I got to straighten this story out. Joe's been telling the story. I like his version a lot, but I don't think it's quite the way I recall our first meeting.
You helped each other be famous.
Yeah, absolutely. And he didn't really need me anyway. So, but, you know, the year before I had not played. I sat out football. I figured, well, it's time to get on with my life and do something else. So I'm out in Kansas, and this is in probably March or April. I think it was April, actually. And I went back to school, took Econ 10 for the third or fourth time, I can't remember, but I got a B in it finally. I always used to have to drop it because I'd quit going to class.
Wow.
So anyway, I did that fall when the team played in 1980. And so in 1981, I'm out there in the spring of the year, and I remember, I'm guessing it was probably around in February where they announced that, you know, the team had hired their new coach, Joe Gibbs, and I think if everybody's honest with themselves, everybody'd go, who?
Right.
I'd never heard of Joe Gibbs. And somebody's told me this in the past, so Joe comes out to Kansas, and he comes out and he, you know, just shows up unannounced. And I happen to be over at a friend of mine's house having a few beers, and I thought, well, I kind of didn't want to leave this what I was doing, so I told him I'd meet him for breakfast. So I don't know if he was planning on popping in and popping out. But honestly, I'd played in the league for 9 years, and I hadn't been impressed with the coaches that I'd been around so much in that amount of time, and I figured that, well, this guy isn't going to be any different. So anyway, I agreed to meet him at breakfast at 10 o'clock the next morning. So he comes to the back door there, and I meet him at the back door, and I got a Budweiser in each hand. And he goes, oh, I don't drink. And I said, that's okay. I'll drink yours. And I did. We go through, we have the meeting, we get up, and we go out to the car, and on the way out, I tell Joe that he's going to be a great coach with or without John Riggins, because I was still kind of pretending like maybe I wasn't going to come back and play. But
did you know? You didn't know.
No, I knew I was coming back. But the banker basically told me I better, unless I wanted him living in my house, which I didn't really like that idea. So what I did, I told Joe, like I said, so I don't recall ever saying, you need to get me back there and I'll make you famous, because then he goes to say, then I wanted a no cut, because he was going to trade me, which I believe that to be true. I think Joe would have, if somebody would have made an offer for me, although at the same time I don't know that to be true either, because I did have a no trade clause in my contract to begin with, but nobody came and asked me if I wanted to be traded. So I always wondered about that part of his story, but as far as I know, I did not tell him that I'd make him famous. I mean, I'm kind of a BSer and braggart, but not quite that.
I'm not going to argue that point. I've been around you long enough. You are, but the rest of that soundbite though, which isn't used in there, and I can give you the verbatim on it, because Joe says, you know, you bring me back there, I'm going to make you famous. And Joe says after he left, said, wow, this guy's an egomaniac.
Exactly.
So. That wasn't a sign of being an egomaniac.
I was extremely confident. But Joe didn't know what he was dealing with. So he was dealing with a professional, a real true professional. I knew what I could do. I had no idea what he could do. So and when it's all said and done, and I've had somebody tell me this, in a weird sort of way, I was interviewing him. So that's kind of the way I left it. I didn't know for sure.
You know, when all is said and done, usually more is said than done. Did you know that?
Say that again.
That was really wise.
Yeah. When all is said and done, usually more is said than done.
Yeah.
Talk is cheap. People talk a lot, right? But
that's basically true.
Actions speak louder than words.
They do. Yeah. Well, that's one of my little stories that I have from out of the past, and just trying to set the record straight, because I think Joe's done a pretty good job on the speaking circuit with telling that side of the story.
Let me ask you this. Joe dealt with everybody differently.
I think he did. I agree with that.
And you and I have talked about this, and I've talked to Joe about it, and that is, you know, some people think that everybody needs to be treated the same, but he had that management style where everybody could be treated differently. How did he treat you differently?
You know, I think that really when it was all said and done, Larry, that we both had a respect for one another. He knew what I had to do. Of course, it wasn't exactly his kind of football, when I say his kind of football, my training methods weren't exactly probably what he thought, but it worked for me. You know, I liked hanging out in the shed. You know, having a few adult beverages, if you will. I can remember the day before we played the Detroit Lions in that first playoff game. In fact, this was about 4 or 5 days after I told him to give me the football, and just don't worry about it. Well, here I am the day before the game. I'm in there knocking back some beer, and he comes around, and it's like almost, and that's when you kind of knew. He wanted to say something, I think, but he just went. Jay Bird, who was the equipment man, says, "Do you have any shoe polish?" And took the shoe polish and left. So, but I could tell he was a little uneasy about it. But then again, we go out the next day, and I think I carried the ball about 25 times, had about 120 yards rushing, and I think he started going, I don't like the way he does things, but hey, he's getting results. So
I want to ask you about the shed. It's hot out today, right? It's going to be about.
Is it ever?
Yeah.
I woke up and went outside. I think it's 85 degrees at 8 o'clock in the morning.
You're not doing yard work today.
I thought about it, but no, I'm not. I'm not going to get a lot done today.
So how hot did that shed get? Because I'm thinking there was no air conditioning in that shed. So you guys would go in there after practice, dehydrated, in desperate need of liquids.
Yes.
And you would find those liquids in the shed. But it had to be like 110 degrees, like a sauna in there.
Yeah, but I don't remember that. I think we just leave the door open. There was a window on the other side. We got a nice little cool breeze in there. It was fine. Yeah. It was actually, the problem became in the wintertime. Rolled into November, and the sun would go down, and all of a sudden we got to the point where we had a little kerosene heater in there, and we'd all be gathered around by the heater. If you can imagine, about 6 guys, 5 or 6. It would be Joe Jacoby, Jeff Bostic, myself, and Russ Grimm. You could pretty much count on us 4 being in there. Donnie Warren would stop in from time to time, but he didn't stay as long as the rest of us.
While we're on this topic, is it true that you would exclude Joe T, that you would not allow Joe T to come in there, even though
there's truth to that? Yes, there is. There was one time there was the team truck, and he got real clever on us, and he drove the truck up and pinned the door so we couldn't get out. He drove it up, and so the door opened outside, so he drove up. That was the way he got it. But we still had the window. We worked it out.
Is there anybody you wished would join who you tried to, hey, why don't you come on in? And they said, no, you guys, hey, boys, have fun. I'm not part of the group.
No, we had the right group that was in there. We were all satified with all the members that we had that would come. Dave Butts would come through on a Saturday morning after our Saturday walkthrough Sunday game. He'd have a beer or two, and then he'd leave. Yeah. But he was one of the few. After you think about it, of course, I was a what do you call it? I was an honorary hog, but basically it was just kind of the hog's little hideout when it's all said and done.
Yeah, but you were the self-appointed El Presidente.
That's true.
And how did that come about? There was no election.
No, there wasn't. We did have one later on because Russ was always trying to usurp my power. He was always trying to become the man, and we eventually, after about a year, after that first year, I think, we had an election, and I think I won by a vote or 2, I forget. But I stayed in presidency. And even to this day, when I see Russ, of course, I've pretty much relinquished it. Russ had he did a whole nother deal because the team moved, and the shed he had to work in had heating, had plumbing, he moved it up. He moved the club down the line a little bit further than what I did.
Wasn't quite a lean-to, was it?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't anything like the shed where we had the mouse and we had pets in there.
You had a mouse in there?
A big mouse. He was
by
the time we left. Yeah, I mean, I started out a mouse, but by the time we left there, after all the food crumbs we'd leave behind,
well-fed rat.
He was very well fed.